for joining us this morning. I'm so happy to have you here on our wonderful program.
It's a pleasure to be here, and thank you for asking me.
It's an absolute honor. When I think about my own personal influences on what made me fall in love with Jewish music and cantorial music, I can think of no one else besides you and probably the cantor I grew up with, Cantor Lamb, who has enabled me to have this wonderful passion for Jewish music. You are the soundtrack of Jewish music, at least in my ears, and I know for so many others who are out there and appreciate your music. So honestly, thank you so much.
Very sweet and kind of you, Marcus.
Thank you. For people who maybe have not heard you speak, I don't recognize a Los Angeles accent, but now you're in Houston. Is this not an American accent that I hear?
This is a British accent.
A British accent. Ah, so are you from the United Kingdom? I would love to hear about your
Well,
background.
I'll tell you very briefly. I was born in Israel and left at age 4, and then grew up for the first 4 years in London, and then the next 8 years in Glasgow, Scotland.
Oh my goodness.
So I had a very thick Scottish accent when I was bar mitzvah, and I have that on tape somewhere. It sounds totally ridiculous, but somehow I lost it when I went back to live in London, and I became a cantor in Golders Green Shul.
In Golders Green Shul. And
Yeah.
am I correct in understanding that you were one of the youngest cantors to ever officiate when you were a teenager?
When I was 14, yes, yes. Right after my bar mitzvah, my dad took me into a room, and he said, I'm going to teach you how to lead high holiday services, whether you like it or not, because I probably would have enjoyed going out and playing during the summer, but we spent a month or so going over the entire liturgy. And at the end of it, there was a little shul up the street from where we lived that were looking for a chazan. And my dad said, "You're ready. Why don't you go and audition for them?"
At
I
14.
did, and I got the job.
Kol hakavod. Well, I look at my post b'nai mitzvah, and yes, I have a few talented ones, but I don't know if I'm ready to give any one of them a job as a high holiday cantor. So this is very, very special. So you mentioned that you were taught by your father. Now,
Yes,
I know you come from a wonderful family of chazanim, but can you maybe tell us a little bit about your family's connection to chazanut?
yes. My father, of blessed memory, was a chazan in Israel. And before that, he lived in Romania. He was a refugee after the Second World War and fought in the War of Independence in Israel. He met my mother there. She actually is English, and she emigrated to Israel when she was only 8 years old in the 30s. So she's a real chalutza.
Hmm.
She grew up there, met my dad, and then my older brother Aryeh and I were born in Israel. My father was a cantor in Haifa, in northern Israel, and somebody was visiting from London, heard him sing, and said, "Hey, how would you like to come to London? We have a job available." So that's how we ended up in England.
That is absolutely amazing. And so, performing with your brother and your father, do you still have those melodies in your head? Does that kind of help shape the chazan that you are today? How has that background kind of shaped your cantorate?
Oh, it's completely shaped my cantorate. Even to this day, I find myself singing in my mind these mirot that we did every Friday night when I was 7, 8 years old. And these are tunes that I haven't heard anywhere else, but they have remained with me, and they've probably affected how I have composed and from that time till now.
Hmm. So as a young chazan, did you have this sense of compositional aspiration, or were you starting to work within the framework of Nusach? Like, I want to know how this all started, how you became Cantor Mayer Finkelstein, the composer. What was the starting point?
It's interesting. It's like I tell people, most people have scripts of their life which are written for them and they're not even aware of them. I mean, it's just genetics and this family where you come from. So my script was the fact that I grew up with Chazanut, singing with my dad and with my brother as children. And I became a Chazan at 14 in the high holidays. I was offered a weekly job after that. And I just fell into it. It's that simple. It was easy. It was enjoyable. I got paid, and I was told that I sound great. So it's not a bad gig.
It was a calling. It was an absolute calling.
It was a calling. I didn't think of anything else that I should be doing. It was very natural.
And was this strongly? I think I know the answer, but this was strongly encouraged by your father and your brother. Was it just like an expectation that you would go into the family business, or did you ever think about maybe not going to the family business? Or I'm so curious.
No. It was. I sometimes compare it to a circus family. When you're raised as an acrobat, you're part of an acrobatic family. Most people stay as acrobats, and then they continue it as a tradition. So pretty much the same thing with the cantor.
Wow. Okay, so after your high holiday position in Scotland, can you go through a little bit of your journey of your cantorial career, maybe into your late teens, your 20s, your 30s? I know you ended up at Sinai Temple in your 30s, and I definitely want to cover that. But I want to know kind of your process of your career, how you ended.
It's very, very strange. I tell people I had the strangest upbringing and teenage years. When I was 16, a job became available in a city in North England called Newcastle upon Tyne. And I left home. I can't remember how I did it, how my parents let me, or I have no recollection of how this happened. But I ended up as a cantor at 16 in a different city. I went to school, high school during the week, and on the weekends I was a chazan. I actually did a funeral when I was 17, and I had to write a note to my teacher by myself. I said, please excuse me this afternoon from Jim, because I have to do a funeral. It was very, very, very strange, very, very strange. Wow. And I was there for 2 years. Then I got a job in London at the Golders Green Shul. That was a big, big shul. The cantor, I was 18, almost 19 at the time, and the cantor before me had just retired after 50 years. He was 78, and here this young kid of 19 shows up. So I managed somehow to get that job. I have no idea how, but I got the job, and at the same time I wanted to continue my musical education. So I applied to the Royal College of Music, and I got in and studied there. Got a degree.
With you have such a angelic, magical voice. What has been your mode of study, your method of study, especially in those early ages? Were you taking any voice lessons, any studies with your father? What was your technique to kind of to create this voice that would last you for decades?
Basically, I was very taken with opera. And I would listen to all the great tenors. Apart from listening to all the great cantors who I grew up with. My father used to play all the long-playing records from morning till night. So I heard every single chazan and every piece known to mankind. I memorized them all. I could accompany myself singing them. But also, I had a great love for opera and for the amazing tenors, for going all the way back to Gili and Björling, and all the greats, and that's what I listened to. And then I studied. I had a teacher, and then I continued my vocal studies at the Royal College. At the same time, my musical interests were also much wider than that. I loved pop music. I loved the Beatles. I loved Burt Bacharach, and I taught myself to play piano and play by ear, and it was listening to all of these things and to cantorial and to opera. That's how I ended up composing in this style. So I have a huge amount of influences.
That is so eye-opening. The fact that you can say that the sounds that are from your childhood, but then also your own passions, have helped to define who you are as your own composer, to take everything as an influence, but then to, filter it through your incredible mind and to create something brand new. It's easy to say that your music has helped to transform Jewish music in the late 20th century and into the early 21st century as well, which is just, it's so, I just want to thank you on behalf of the Jewish community at Sinai for everything that you
Very,
provide.
very kind of you. Very kind of you. So maybe at this point, I could talk about those aspects of my composing.
I would love to hear that. What are the secrets?
Yes, they're not secrets exactly, but I thought I could approach writing music for the liturgy or prayers in a way that I would have done so if I were a graduate of the Royal College of Music, which I was, setting English poems to music. But now I'm setting Hebrew to music. So I also, in high school, took Hebrew as a language. So I'm sort of knew Hebrew grammar, and I grew up speaking Hebrew at home with my parents. So I thought that perhaps I should look at composing in a very different way. And that is, look at how you're supposed to look at the word, we call it milel or milra.
Mm-hmm.
And milra is what we call the default pronunciation of Hebrew word. If you open up the Siddur, you'll see that there's a little line called a meteg, and some Hebrew words have that little line going down, and that tells you that that word is not milra, it's milel. What does that mean? It means that the stress is not on the final syllable. It's usually in the middle of the word. Most Hebrew words are milra, which is the stress is on the final syllable. So, for example, we have Baruch, Shalom, Yisrael. That's all milra. And milel, we have Aleinu, Leshabeach. So if we mispronounced it, we'd say Aleinu, Leshabeach.
That sounds ridiculous, of course.
It sounds ridiculous. So to me, it sounded ridiculous to say Shalom Aleichem, which is incorrect. It's Shalom Aleichem.
Because in some compositions you can hear it. Shalom Aleichem, Aleichem, Shalom. You can hear the accent is in the wrong place.
Right. So the reason for that is because whoever composed them either didn't know or didn't care that there was a Milel Milra. And usually they had a melody and they crammed the words into the melody.
Mm.
Now, I have come to Jewish composition exactly the other way. So it's if I were writing, like I said before, a poem in English to music, like a classical thing. So when I look at Shalom Aleichem and the famous Goldfarb that everyone sings, Shalom Aleichem, where the stress is in the middle of the word and it's wrong. It's Milel, it should be Shalom Aleichem. So when I say the words, a certain kind of meter comes to my mind. So I say, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon. So that is what we call 6/8 time. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4. Shalom Aleichem, Malachei. Why didn't you play that?
And there it is. It's amazing. I just learning from that. That's so key. That text comes first. That you are a setter of liturgical text. You are not a creator of melodies just for melody's sake. You are looking at the text, and that informs your decisions. That's huge. That's huge to know. And I hope that one statement alone can influence future composers as well. Here is Cantor Mayor Finkelstein's Shalom Aleichem.
Shalom Aleichem,
There we go. So you get an idea. So the melody came as a result of trying to set it correctly grammatically, which is how you should compose Hebrew settings.
I could listen to you sing all day, and sometimes I do if I need inspiration. I don't know if people are aware, but there's a website called the Florida Atlantic University Jewish Music Archives, and that has a vast collection of Jewish music from composers, cantors, and Cantor Meir Finkelstein has a wonderful page and has a few of his albums there too, which I love to listen to, which is part of their archive and recording. Your High Holiday one, the Shema Kolenu one, the one that you composed at Sinai Temple, with a beautiful picture on the front with the stained glass windows. All these albums are so great. By the way, we have a few hellos in the chat, of course, from our dear friend Ariel Cohen, who's just about to go in and do some teaching, but he says, "Good morning, gentlemen. Can be with you for a few minutes before I start teaching for the day. Love you both." So I would love to talk about your connection with Ariel, definitely too, and also Jason Cosgrove. I'm sure you remember Jason, my long-lost chazan. And Ariel says he loves the intro, the little lick at the end of Shalom Aleichem. So he's definitely been your partner, the musical team. So I would love to actually this is probably a good transition to talk about your role at Sinai Temple, because I know that when you were here at Sinai, you composed over 100 compositions of Jewish liturgical music, and many of which have become the staples, the mainstays of our liturgical year, not just for Shabbat, but throughout our year at Sinai Temple and for many other occasions as well.
Sinai Temple changed my life in a very, very positive way. It was the first time I could express myself musically based on all of my influences and with total freedom, because I had a wonderful accompanist and music director, Ariel Cohen, to work with, who not only was a wonderful colleague, but we became very, very close friends over the years and have remained so. And also the fact that I had a quartet of professional singers every Friday night and Shabbat morning, I could actually write something on a Tuesday and sing it on a Friday night. I would just give the music to Ariel and the choir. We'd rehearse it once or twice, and then we would perform it. So very few cantors have that kind of privilege to have those musical forces that they can utilize. So for that, number one is something that completely changed my musical life. Number two, I hadn't discovered the wonderful compositions of Max Helfman and Max Janowski until I got to Sinai Temple.
Interesting.
I was never exposed to these kind of composers. And when I first heard the Shema Kolenu, Helfman Shema Kolenu, it just blew me away. I'm thinking to myself, I grew up with traditional Chazanut, where Shema Kolenu was never, ever interpreted that way. You would have a cantor who's crying Shema Kolenu and just repeating the words 500 times. Here you have an actual musical event. You have a composer who's thinking about what he's saying, and he's expressing it in a modern Jewish way, a modern musical way. And so that was the beginning of me composing for choir and organ, and feeling free to be able to do so. I'm thinking, if Max Helfman can do this kind of music, Finkelstein should also be able to try and do this kind of music. So it was a huge thing for me to be at Sinai.
One anecdotal story that I'm sure you've heard is Malcolm Cosgrove, talking about the Cosgroves, Malcolm Cosgrove, who was a past president of Sinai Temple and was actually the chair of the Cantorial Search Committee who found me. He was talking about when you first got to Sinai. I think he describes your first composition for Friday night was the Lecha Dodi Likrat Kala, and he's just like, all of a sudden he's like, wow, what was that? It was so different and beyond anything that had been heard at Sinai Temple, and just really just shook the foundation of what was possible in terms of Jewish music.
Yeah, it's again, I had trepidation here. I was coming into a big shul like that, and with a tremendous tradition of music, and especially of Cantor Carl Erstein of blessed memory, who's a wonderful composer and a lovely guy. And actually, my Lechadodi was a reaction to what he had written, and I mean, it was beautiful, but it wasn't very up. It wasn't very happy. So I thought to myself, yes, right. So I thought, let me write something happy, because there's a new guy in town, and let's see the reaction. But luckily people enjoyed it. So that sort of started the whole thing.
Oh, that's so much fun. So much fun. So what is the history of Lador Vador? I have to know, because anyone who knows Sinai Temple music and anyone who knows you knows your Lador Vador. I'm sure you've sung it more than anyone else, and I feel like I've sung it more than anyone else, but you've definitely sung it more than anyone else. But what is the history? How did that piece come into play? How did that become the anthem of Sinai Temple and for the Jewish world?
If memory serves me correctly, I believe I wrote it for the Delshads, for Jimmy and Lonnie, on the occasion of their daughter or son's bar bat mitzvah.
Wow.
And I also believe that Jimmy has the original manuscript in his home.
Above his piano. That's what I've heard. Yes.
Above his piano. That's correct. I present.
That is worth a lot of money. Jimmy, that's worth a lot of money. You better hold on to that.
So that's the story of Lador Vador. I was looking, again, it's interesting. I was looking through the Siddur, because he asked me to write something special for the bar mitzvah. And I looked at the page with the Musaf Kedusha. And, out of deference to Cantor Erstein, I didn't want to write, excuse me, a composition based on something that he had composed. So I looked at the whole page, Na'aritzcha, all the way down, and I thought, wait, should I write a new Na'aritzcha? I said, no. And I got to the bottom of the page, and it was Lador Vador. I said, Erstein didn't set this to music.
Nope.
so that's how Lador Vador came about. And wow. We had a wonderful music teacher at the time called Ruti Breyer from Argentina. And she was in the office as I was composing this thing. And it just sort of came to me. I just sat at the piano and I just started a melody. And after I finished, I said, Ruti, what do you think? She said, it's amazing. I said, really? I said, I think it's very ordinary. But I don't think it's anything special. She said, no, it's amazing. You have to sing it. I said, okay. And that's how Lador Vador got started. And then I sent it to my brother, my older brother in Boston. He calls me a couple of weeks later. He said, why did you send me that piece? I said, what do you mean? He says, they're driving me crazy. I have to sing it every day. People are calling me. So there was something about it that caught on. I don't know why. And, has a life of its own, as they say.
For me, you're Lador Vador, and also, in all honesty, you're Ve'al Kulam too, it touched me and inspired me. I remember, singing with Nate Lamb when I was 10, 11, 12 years old, probably right around the time you wrote the music, and he introduced it to our choir, and it became something that we just needed to do every single week because it touched our souls in such an impactful way. And just to know that even, across town, a few miles away at Stephen Wise Temple, you had kids singing it, and I'm sure not only at Stephen Wise Temple, when it was published through Transcontinental Music, or how you've shared your music with the world, how many students, how many children, how many adults have fell in love with Judaism and Jewish music because of your compositions. It's innumerable. It's
very, very gratifying. Very gratifying.
I'm so glad. Well, I would love to hear another one of your compositions. Maybe can we talk about Birkat Kohanim? I know you have a couple settings of Birkat Kohanim.
Yes. So this one I actually wrote in Toronto when I was the cantor at Beth Yeshurun Congregation, and I didn't have accompaniment at the time. Yes, they didn't allow it at services, but I had a wonderful choir. So the original version of this was with a cappella choir. But in my mind, I always thought cinematically and harmonically. So I was just glad that I could finally do it with accompaniment. It's actually based on what we call the duchenin, but in Orthodox shuls, where they have the Birkat Kohanim, where the priests bless the people, they come up and stand in front of the ark and they put talit over their heads. And there's a melody, very, very old traditional melody, which I sort of borrowed in a way, but sort of paid tribute to. If you listen to the composition, when I go, you'll see that. And so that's a way of paying tribute to what's past. But at the same time, if you listen to the chord structure, very, very modern, and very, very different.
Birkat Kohanim. Don't stop it. No.
But you heard a little section of the that's again, it's a tribute to what has been going on for hundreds and hundreds of years in liturgical music.
And you do all the orchestrations too, correct?
Yeah.
So you're not only writing the melody, you're not only writing the accompaniment, but when you were at Sinai, you had Ariel's help to do the arrangement and the accompaniment, which was phenomenal too. But you're also doing choral parts. You're doing the orchestral arrangements. It's
right.
Man, I like to call you a triple threat of cantorial. When you have an actor who's a triple threat, they can sing, dance, and act. You can sing, you can compose, and you play the piano. You have the entire package.
Thank you.
So stunning. So I would love to also talk about. Let me see what we have here. Shema Kolenu. We have a wonderful setting of Shema Kolenu, and this is the second one. We've actually been using your first Shema Kolenu on Slichot, and also during Yom Kippur as well. It's hard to not do the Helfman Shema Kolenu, especially in Sinai. People are used to hearing it too, but to be able to have opportunities to use your Shema Kolenu is stunning. And then this is actually news to me that you have a second version of Shema Kolenu. So,
I do. This was the one that you use was a congregational melody, I believe, and I composed that for Udi Spielman and for his wife, and they sang it in Boca, Beth Torah, and they wanted something that everyone could join in with, different kind of Shema Kolenu. This Shema Kolenu that you're going to listen to a little bit. This was my way of saying, I think I've got to a stage where I can attempt to do something in the vein of Max Helfman. Not as grandiose, but a major cantorial piece with choir. So go ahead and play it.
Schmuckle.
Shema, Shema, Kolenu.
I sent you the wrong one. that's the one. I think that's the one that you use, right?
No.
No, you don't use that one. Oh, that's the one. Oh, okay. Oh,
Is that the one? Is that the one you're looking for?
Yes.
Ah.
Oh, okay.
That one's on the Florida.
Actually, you can play this one because this is the congregational one. Okay, go ahead and play that. Yeah, go ahead.
This is so great that you have so many compositions of your own that you are mixing them up. Halavai, halavai. Here we go.
Shema, Shema, Kolenu. Adonai Eloheinu. Chus verachem. Chus verachem aleinu. V'kaber berachamim u'beratzon et tefilateinu. Shema, Shema, Kolenu.
Everyone join in.
Adonai Eloheinu.
So you see, completely different kind of Shema Kolenu. It's not pompous and it's just a sing-along kind of thing.
See, now I really want to find the other Shema Kolenu so that people could hear it. I'm going to pull it up really quick. But while we are talking about that, I would love to kind of hear from you, having grown up in a cantorial family and now having been a cantor for a few decades. How have you seen the role of the cantorate evolve, change, or adapt, and what can we expect to see? Like if you were to be talking to a chazan who was just ordained in his early 20s or mid 20s, or even those of us in our 30s, what do you see as the future of chazanut in Jewish music?
Very, very different from when I was first starting out. I don't believe that there are any cantorial students who come from cantorial families anymore. I don't think so.
Very few.
Maybe there are, but it's very, very doubtful. So it's a profession, like I told you about the acrobats, that usually it's in the family. So the new cantors coming up don't have the kind of rich background that for instance, that I had. And that's partially due to the fact that when you grow up Orthodox, like I did, it's a much fuller education. And you're also exposed to the old style traditional chazanut. The Rosenblatt, Kusevitsky, Chagi, Kvartin, there are so many, and wonderful cantors, brilliant cantors. But the young cantors today will not be exposed to that, number one. Number two, congregations are not interested in that kind of old cantorial compositions. And I think I would tell young cantors who are just starting out that you have to be very flexible. You have to be very musical in the sense of doing things in a very modern way. Broadway even. Just think of what you're doing is sort of a Jewish version of Broadway on the Beamer, where you're trying to come up with melodies or sing melodies other people have written, which are very accessible to the congregation. People just want to sing along. I think the days of the great star cantors, where you stand up then and sing a modim for 20 minutes, I believe that's not going to happen again. Whether it's good or bad, that's for a congregation to decide. It's still there with Orthodox congregations in New York. You can still go and hear a cantor sing till 2 p.m. on Shabbat morning, if that's what you want to do. But you certainly will not find it in conservative congregations. So that's pretty much what I have to say about the future of the cantorate.
Wow. Got to be flexible. Got to adapt. Got to learn to change.
Learn to change and play the guitar. It doesn't hurt.
Play the guitar.
Play the guitar.
Do you play guitar? I'm so curious.
I do, actually.
You do? Oh my God! Of course you do. Wow.
I do. But I never enjoyed it as much as the keyboard. Keyboard was always my instrument. And even now, when in my shul here in Houston, I actually put my keyboard up there next to my lectern, and many Friday nights I actually accompany myself.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah, which I enjoy a lot because it gives me tremendous flexibility. Yeah.
I found your Shema Kolenu that you were referring to. I want to play definitely a piece of this too, but this is the one that's also it also kind of feels in that 6/8 feel, correct?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, Shema Kolenu. I love that setting. I love that setting.
Yes, so there you see there's a sense of longing. I always used to say when people ask me why I liked the Helfman so much when I first heard it, because the type of Shema Kolenus that I grew up with, and especially the old cantorial ones, if you listen to them, it's almost a sense that the singer is feeling sorry for himself. And he's saying to God, "Oh, please listen to me. Please listen. You know, no one listens to me. Even my wife doesn't listen to me. But God, please listen to me." It's that kind of crying. And along comes the Helfman, and it's almost like a chutzpah, like he's saying to God, "Shema Kolenu. Here I am. Listen to me." You know. So this Shema Kolenu that you just played. It's sort of like that, but it has a much more sort of warm feeling to it, much more traditional sense of what's underneath it. Sort of saying, yeah, we used to be much more weepy, but now we're more powerful, and we're coming to you in a different way.
It's the story of the Jewish people, the story of Israel. It's an embodiment of who you are.
Yes, I hope so.
So I also know that you have a wonderful tradition of being commissioned to write different compositions, and not necessarily only for the liturgy, but you also have a wonderful career in Hollywood and everything. We didn't even touch on that whole aspect of not even writing for the synagogue too. But one of the pieces that I've heard in recent memory was a commission by Cantor Don Gurney at Wilshire Boulevard Temple. And I think he asked you to write, is it true, a joint anthem for America and Israel, and somehow put that together. Is that correct? That's what I heard.
That's correct, yeah. And I came up with the title "Bound by a Common Destiny" because that's what I feel we share as the United States and Israel. It's a common destiny. And I had a video put together showing the two different countries and our love for them. And in the end, I asked Don if it's okay if I dedicate it to AIPAC, because I believe that's what they do. You know, it's a combination of Israel and America, a love for both, and we want them both to be strong. So this is actually an anthem for AIPAC, Bound by a Common Destiny.
Okay, here we go.
From the sands of the Negev to the snow as a land of milk and honey, this nation calls its home. They've ended their long journey that took 2,000 years and built a land that's lush and green with blood and sweat and tears. This mighty land, from waves of grain to mountains high, we all stand hand in hand. This is the home of freedom, alabaster cities gleam, a sanctuary for the tyrant poor, fulfillment of a dream.
Lovely.
Thank you.
So lovely. Oh. Can we just do this all day? I want to listen to your music all day.
Thank you.
I do have one more composition to share, but maybe we'll do that at the very, very end. But I would love to hear what your life as a cantor has been like in the last 3 months. So for those who are watching way into the future, we are currently in the midst of a global pandemic, and all of our synagogues have basically become virtual synagogues from the middle of March of 2020. And I'm so curious how you have, as an experienced chazan, adapted to this new reality that no one's ever faced before, and kind of where you stand.
Well, what you just showed is an example of what we're doing, and that's showing videos. And we have Zoom sessions like every other shul. We have different programs for all age groups. I just did a series called Quarantine with Finkelstein.
That's great.
Where I did a concert every Sunday for 4 weeks, Sunday afternoon. And it was, one of them was a sing-along. I did the Beatles, Bacharach, and another one was 70s, 80s songs. And this final one we just did.
Oh, I lost your picture.
Okay, hold on a second. Okay.
There you are.
You got me again? Okay.
There you are.
All right. So, so one I just did was with my daughter, Emily, who is studying opera at San Francisco.
Wonderful. And
little chip up the old block. So she just did. We had a wonderful baritone from the Houston Opera sing. So we're doing different kinds of things for the congregation. I think what I'm trying to do, and I think which you do very well, obviously, is that we're trying to keep their attention. We're trying to say, although physically you can't be here in this building, you are here as a community, and we'll continue to do whatever we can to make your lives as meaningful as possible through what we do. And what you and I do is music. And
it's so true.
And prayer. That's what we do.
It's so true, and the blessing of technology is that we have access to recordings or concerts in the past, and then now everything is up on YouTube. Like even the cantors who you referenced from your childhood, if you want to go and listen to Rosenblatt or Kusevitsky, Kvartin or Sirota, whoever it is, like you can go on YouTube and you can listen to all these albums.
It's amazing.
We're
It's
so
amazing.
blessed.
I
We're
think
absolutely blessed.
YouTube has changed so many lives just by the very fact that it's there.
Yeah.
I mean,
But it doesn't. A YouTube recording doesn't replace a community, and that's still what we have to strive
No,
to
it
create.
doesn't. It doesn't. No, and there are very many of our congregants, and I'm sure with you too, who are very frustrated that they cannot come and sit in their seat and
Yes.
and be part of a live service. It's very frustrating, and it's frustrating for us. We have we look out into an empty congregation.
It's not the same. No,
it's not the same.
You can't just get up there on the bema and do the prayers of the liturgy and expect it to be the same. You feed off of the energy of the kahal, of the community, and
Absolutely. And what I think I miss the most is just hugging people. That's what we do. We hug our congregants. They look forward to it, and we look forward to it, and we ask them how they're doing. And you know, this is very, very different. And I think that's one of the worst aspects of this is the fact that we cannot be in close proximity. And
you know, I'll
hug
share
each other.
I'll share a little anecdote. I'm not a very emotional person. I don't often cry, but it was a few months basically when the quarantine happened. I gathered all the stuff from my office at Sana. I came back here, and I'm here at my home office, and I've basically been working out of my home office, and I didn't go back into my office until only a couple weeks ago. And when I walked into the building and I walked into Cohen Chapel, I actually wept a little bit. Like I was teary-eyed just looking around and knowing that children who pack this room normally every day were not in that room. And we're not going to be in that room for the foreseeable future. And it was just so sad. So sad. And you know, these Zoom sessions are great, but it just doesn't replace what we have in person. But you know, the value of pikuach nefesh to be able to save a life is of tantamount importance. So
tantamount. Absolutely.
We have to do it.
Absolutely. We have to be patient. I mean, it's very difficult, but that's what we have to do. Just ride this out until we're all safe and until we have a vaccine that works. That's
Amen.
What we have to do.
Well, to make this a little more uplifting at the end of our conversation, you've written music in many different styles, correct?
I certainly have. I have. So I think you're going to play the Adon Olam, correct?
Yeah. So you sent me a samba Adon Olam. Am I hearing this correctly? I don't
think
oftentimes.
Salsa.
Oh, salsa.
Yeah, salsa. Yeah.
Salsa Adon Olam. My goodness. So what's the story behind wanting to create an Adon Olam in salsa style? How does that come to you?
I tell you something. I have this amazing keyboard. It's made by Yamaha. And it has all these different sounds to it. And one day I was just experimenting with it, and this amazing sound came up. It's an entire band just playing in the background, and I started to play with it. And I think, you know, this. Let me see if a melody comes to me, and then this Adon Olam came to me, and it's just fun. It's just happy. You know, I thought, well, why not? Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. Here we go.
It's hard to believe, but there wasn't one actual live instrument.
Really?
That was just the keyboard, and it has the most amazing sounds. The guitar sounds like a real Spanish guitar, and the horn section. You know, it's just fabulous what you can do in the studio. Quite amazing.
Absolutely amazing. Well, Cantor Meir Finkelstein, this has been such a pleasure to sit down and chat with you, to learn about your story and all your compositions. And you're an absolute mensch. It's a pleasure to talk with you and to speak
Thank
with
you.
you. And
Thank you,
I
Marcus.
encourage everyone to look at Mayor Finkelstein's website and music and to follow him online. And just as he's become an inspiration to me, I know he will become an inspiration to you as well. Thank you so, so much, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Shabbat Shalom to everyone.